feel like I'm really close. I feel like I'm really close to these animals right now, and I feel like they're going to figure me out pretty quick. Like, I feel like I'm standing out despite being up in a tree. Man, those deer came in that evening. It was a group. It was 2 does and a spike buck that came in, and they had no idea that I was there. It felt so good to have deer just walk in at 20 yards and not even pay you any mind.
Yeah.
Oh, you got her, dude. She's down. Let's go.
Dude, I just shot a deer of a lifetime.
Freaking smoked him.
One with nature, and if you're a believer, one with God.
Definitely gets your heart pumping. Boy, you are in trouble.
Fall Obsession Podcast.
All right, guys, welcome back to another Fall Obsession Podcast episode. I'm Sam, your podcast host. Our Fall Obsession Podcast is driven by Ridge Rock Hunt Company, and we'll talk more about them here in a few moments. Joining me, technically in person right now, is our production director, Nick Powell.
What's up, guys?
Back in person again, and if you guys are, whether you're listening or watching the video, I'm sure you've noticed by now that things sound a little bit different, and that is because we are on the road. This is a truck podcast, so we are actually recording right now while we are traveling, heading out to the Texas Dirt Place. Kind of wanted the point of this episode today, and kind of what we want to talk about. We've had some things happen since deer season started that we want to recap. Just some activities that have taken place so far in our season, and also Nick got a little bit of a new arrow build going on as well, so we kind of wanted to recap that and talk a little bit of archery with you guys as well. So little bumpy out here driving through Stevens County, so if the video's a little jiggled, we're doing our best here, but appreciate you guys tuning in. So it is, what day is it? It's October 23rd. October 23rd, on our way to Texas Dirt. This is your first hunt at Texas Dirt this year.
Yep.
So I don't know, man. I'm kind of excited. Kind of recapping a little bit of what we've dealt with so far. I've obviously hunted out here already and been able to kill a pig and a doe so far. Get some early animals on the ground. I'm a lot more optimistic than I was last year. And granted, we got a lot more setups than we do last year. Which, if folks have been watching the Texas Dirt series on YouTube, they would see that as well. But I don't know, man. It's your first trip out here. How do you feel?
Man, and we've talked a little bit about it just driving up here. I'm freaking stoked to be out here. This is our second time to be out here together, which is cool because we're buds. And my first time actually hunting deer out here, you know, because the last time I was out here was with you. The time before that was also like a work type trip where we were, you know, checking cameras, switching cards, checking batteries, that kind of thing, checking feeders, filling feeders.
Yeah.
I was able to harvest a big pig out here as well, but that's been 3 months ago now, I think, something like that. So, man, I'm freaking stoked. I could not be more excited to be out here.
Yeah. Man, that's one thing, and I don't know if we've really mentioned it a lot on the podcast, but our pigs have really turned on this year. A lot more than they were last year. Last year, it seemed like the later we got in the year and the drier it got, the less pigs that we saw. We're coming into this season after one of the worst droughts we've had probably in close to 10 years.
Yeah, it's a record year drought for sure.
But yet our pigs are far greater numbers than we were seeing last year.
Yeah.
So, and that being said, the pig that I got to kill, it was opening day of Texas Archery, October 1st, which I know doesn't matter for pig hunting, but that's why I was out there. And man, holy cow, he was a freaking toad. Just an absolute bruiser. He came in, and I thought, like, I knew he was big. I knew he was one of the bigger boars we had. But first off, our boars, they've only ever traveled in singles or doubles. They never travel with a group of them.
Yeah, hardly ever.
And he came in with a group of them. We're at the tail end, and Sal's piglets, they go straight to the feeder. He's in there snorting, sniffing, circling, trying to figure out if something is in there that he doesn't like. And I'm only thinking like the deer mentality is coming out. I'm like, man, he's acting like a freaking deer. He's gonna win me, and he's gonna bust out of here. And of course, I'm zoned in on him because he's the big one. You know, he's visibly bigger than the rest. And finally got him to settle in there a little bit, enough to where I was able to get a 20-yard shot at him and put him down. So, and I didn't realize how big he was until I walked up on him. Honestly, I knew he was big. Similar, and I don't know if it is the same pig because we have 2 pigs out there that are the same size. But when Todd was out there with me in July, he shot at a pig that was either this pig or of equal size, and we didn't recover that animal. Couldn't find blood, couldn't find anything, not really sure what happened.
Gotcha.
So I knew it was one that was that big, but I didn't realize how big that sucker was till I walked up on it.
And the one that I shot, I felt exactly the same way.
Yeah.
Like, you shot yours with a bow, so you're a lot closer than I was. I shot mine with a rifle, so I was probably 100 yards away.
Yeah.
And I did not realize how big he was until I was up on him and tried to drag him. And I dragged him 20 yards away just to get him kind of away from the feeder, and that was about all I could move him by myself. So they are all there for sure.
Yeah, it's
maybe we can go pick up your skull.
Yeah, that was one thing that we need to do. We need to go try to find my skull and Todd's skull too, while we're out here. I'm glad you thought of that. But yeah, and on that note, the reason we're saying that, Todd's pig, we did when he killed that hog back in July, which Todd and I have podcasted about that and talked about his experience down here when he was in Texas. It was, I think, episodes 113 and 114 were those podcasts that he and I recorded live down here. But with these pigs, and I think I talked about it a little bit back in those episodes, man, if you're unfamiliar with hunting Texas, these pigs are they're such nuisances. And these big ones, especially the size that you killed that day and that I killed on October 1st, these are pigs that you don't want to mess with, man. They're not good to eat. They smell bad. Their hair is literally greasy on the outside. Their skin is a 1/4 inch thick. It's just they're machines. They're just beasts. That's all they are at this point. There is nothing good about them. They are varmints. They are beasts, and they're a threat, really. Not just a dangerous animal when agitated, but also just to the environment. They tear stuff up. They knock over feeders. They knock over fences. They tear up these dirt and gravel roads that we have out there. Yep. It's just, at this point, these pigs are just animals that have to get taken out of here. So
they can easily, because like a lot of people keep their feeders at a decent height to where a pig, normal sized pig cannot reach it, but these pigs are so big that they can reach these deer height feeders so easily. I mean, it's just, you got to take them out.
Well, they can reach the feeders, and if you have a feeder that's anything but concreted into the ground, man, it like, as soon as they figure out they can knock one of those poles over and take the whole feeder down and have unlimited corn for a day or so, man, they do it to every single one. Yep. They're smart animals.
Super smart.
And I feel like that's one thing that people don't really realize about hogs. Like, there's this misconception that hogs are stupid, hogs are easy to hunt, and that kind of stuff. And there are aspects of hog hunting that are easier than whitetail hunting. Mainly if you have a big group of pigs, because if you have a big group of pigs and your wind is right, you can get right in on them.
Yeah,
because
I've done it before.
Yeah, exactly. They rely on their sense of smell as their biggest safety mechanism because they can't see very well, and when they're in a big group like that, they can't hear very well over their own noise, which is
so loud.
Which is why you have the advantage. But like these boars that travel by themselves, they're the smart ones because their skills, their safety mechanisms, they're more honed than the younger ones than the ones that travel in a pack. Todd and I saw that when he was out here because that boar came in by himself, and the second he stepped in, the wind was swirling just a little bit, and we're tucked back into the brush, but it's 110 degrees at the time in July in Texas. We're in shorts and t-shirts out there hunting. Granted, neutral colors, but still just shorts and t-shirts. he can't see very well, but the second he steps out, he's on us. He knows that there's something there.
Yeah.
And Todd said it felt like deer hunting. He acted like a deer,
Yeah.
you know? So,
yeah, and I had the same experience when I was hunting my axis out at the M5 Ranch. That's actually at Breckenridge as well.
yeah.
That morning that I shot my axis, we were sitting in a stand that morning earlier, and we had 3, I wouldn't call them piglets, they were probably 50 plus pounds, but they were smaller pigs, and they were just kind of not a care in the world. But then you had one boar come up after them. He was a little bit bigger, a little bit older, a little bit wiser, and he immediately knew that something was off.
Yeah.
And gave one good snort, and all 4 of them were out of there.
Yep.
So they're definitely not dumb animals.
No, they're definitely more challenges to hunting them and stuff like that. And yeah, I was very grateful to be in a tree stand. The wind wasn't perfect for that evening hunt, but it was good enough to where I'm sitting in the stand. But again, he's circling. He's moving around because he's trying, before he settles in and starts eating, he's trying to figure out if there's something in there that he doesn't like. So just it was very interesting to watch that behavior. I got it on film. It's going to be on Texas Dirt in an upcoming episode. Looking forward to sharing that with you guys. But one of the 2 biggest pigs that I have ever killed in my life, and certainly the biggest one that I've ever killed with a bow.
Yeah.
So,
I'd say the same thing about mine.
yeah. It's pretty awesome. But
it's just crazy that there's 2 boars of that caliber out there.
I know,
in the same area.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, it's there are big pigs out there, and I think my dad up by, because his stand is on the north end of the property, our bow setups are more toward the southern end.
Yeah.
But my dad up by his stand, he has a pig up there that's pretty big. I don't think it's quite as big as this guy, but he's getting there. So there's plenty of big hogs out there, man, and they, like, you see these groups of them, they stand out, like nothing else.
Sure.
So I had the opportunity to shoot that hog. Wait till we stop jiggling.
Yeah.
So I had the opportunity to shoot that hog, and then kind of something that's not in Texas Dirt a whole lot, just because it happened out here on Texas Dirt. My opening weekend hunt actually got cut short because I got sick out there in the stand. Like,
kind of a bummer.
Yeah, bailing out of the camper, puking my guts out sick, which wasn't very fun. And that put a whole damper kind of on the start of my hunting season, and as far as what I had planned, as far as when I was going to make trips and everything out there. But before, because I blocked off some time off at work, and wanted to make the most out of it, but ended up being able to go back out there. What was it? I guess it was going on 2 weeks ago, about a week and a half ago now, I'd say.
Yeah.
Got to go out there for 2-3 more days before I went back to work, and actually, again, out of that tree stand, same tree stand I shot the pig out of, I was able to shoot a doe with my bow. So pretty excited to be able to get a deer on the ground earlier in the year than I did last year, and have some early success. It's a good feeling. So I really like that tree stand, man, and I am a tree stand hunter. I like being above, just up in a tree above animals.
I do too.
Instead of ground level. I will always pick a tree stand, but that's literally the only tree I've found in a spot I can put a stand set up so far, which is frustrating, but I'm enjoying it this year, opposed to hunting on the ground like we did all the year last year.
Right.
And I've honestly wondered, like, I set up the stand, we set up the feeder, and I got in it for the first hunt, the hunt I killed the pig in, and I'm thinking, man, that feeder's only 20 yards away. I'm only, in this Texas scrub brush, I'm only so far off the ground. It's like, man, I feel like I'm really close. I feel like I'm really close to these animals right now, and I feel like they're going to figure me out pretty quick. Like, I feel like I'm standing out despite being up in a tree. Man, those deer came in that evening. It was a group. It was 2 does and a spike buck that came in, and they had no idea that I was there. It felt so good to have deer just walk in at 20 yards and not even pay you any mind.
Yeah.
It was a great feeling. Something that I just, with the ground blind, I don't know, there's just a level of weariness that comes with that. I feel like that is difficult to take on. So
yeah, and I'll add to that a gear suggestion that I have had success with is some sort of leafy jacket or some sort like what's the leafy suits? Ghillie suit.
Like a ghillie suit,
Type deal. Something that looks leafy, that looks loose, that you can put on over if it's cold, you can put on over your jacket, something like that, just to break up your outline.
Yeah.
I think works wonders. And like if you say, like you said, you're super close, I think if you get something leafy like that breaks up your outline, that'll just camouflage you even more. And I've had great success with mine that I have. Last year I've had deer walk right under my tripod, because last year I hunted a lot out of a tripod with not a lot of cover around me, and so I needed something to just kind of cover me up a little bit and break up that outline, that human outline, that deer can pick out real easily.
Yeah.
And I had freaking awesome success yesterday having deer like walking right underneath my tripod.
Yeah.
So that's a suggestion that I would put out there for our listeners, is like, if you are planning on hunting out of a tree or hunting out of a tripod, but you're up close, obviously not a ground blind, but if you're out in the open, get something to break up that outline.
Man, and you hit on the head with the breaking it up. That's the whole point of camouflage, whatever environment you're hunting in, is, I feel like it's talking to probably some more novice hunters that might be tuning in. The misconception behind camouflage is that you have to match your environment. It's not necessarily about matching your environment as much as it is breaking you up. That's what you're trying to do, because deer in particular are colorblind, so they see shadows and shades is what they have. And if you have the right shadows and shades in your pattern to match your environment, it will help break you up. That's why we're seeing this comeback all of a sudden of some of these more a new age spin on some of these older style camo patterns, because camo patterns back in the day, was the military style camo that we all think of. It wasn't the real tree leafy stuff. Not that there's anything wrong with that stuff. I wear it. You'll probably see me wearing it here later today.
Yeah,
but
sure.
But you're seeing a comeback with a lot of these companies like Furlough and First Light and Sitka and Kuiu and all these companies that are coming out with these patterns that don't have specific trees or grasses or stuff in them. It's all shades and shapes and colors and that kind of stuff, and it's just they're trying to break you up. So that's the whole mindset behind camouflage at this point. So man, I wanted to ask you, because while this is your first trip to hunt Texas dirt this year, you have already hunted this year out at your other place. What do you got going on out there? Because last year, if our listeners are returning from last year, they might recall you having some encounters with a pretty big deer out there last year.
Yeah, and he's back this year. I know last year, just for those of you who don't know, I did shoot a really good deer.
150 plus class.
I would think so. Yeah,
easy.
something like that. And he's back this year. I hit him low last year. Had really good blood. Was actually very surprised that he didn't die. But I did hit him low. Didn't hit him very good. Didn't have good penetration. Anyways, go listen to that story. But he is back this year, and so I haven't seen him yet in person. He's still nocturnal because we're still pretty early in the season. But I have seen several does. I did shoot a pig just last week. Didn't get a good hit on it either. He had an issue with range. Didn't shoot him. Didn't hit him very good. But anyways, yeah, he's back. I have seen some does. First night, actually, I am now in a tree stand, not hunting out of tripods anymore, which is awesome, because those deer, like you said, they don't even pay you any mind.
Right.
And so the first night, 10 minutes after I got into the stand, I had two does, 2 yearlings, and a fawn walk 10 yards from me. Now the hope is that I have that out here tonight. Yeah. So if that happens, then I'm definitely going to harvest a doe. But that property, that Collin County property, is just a little different. We don't have the number of deer that we have out here, so that's more of a trophy hunt, trophy type hunt, that you want to shoot big bucks and that kind of thing. So that's kind of what I reserve that for.
Yeah.
The number of deer are much greater out here, so that's what I'm using this for, is to get that meat, because I'm also a meat hunter. Yeah. We know that from past podcasts and such. So yeah. Anyways, they passed right by me and paid me no mind, kind of like those does did to you.
Yeah.
A couple weeks ago.
Well, hopefully that buck turns daylight for you and you get another crack at him.
Yeah,
I know.
I hope so too.
I know it was pretty crazy to have him survive. I'm glad he did as well. Instead of obviously the better outcome than not finding him or anything like that.
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
Despite it being frustrating for you last year too. But another thing too, just like it's obvious that he needs to go this year, because you sent me a trail cam picture of him, like, dude, he's back. And I was like, my first thought was he looks exactly the same as he did last year. There's no antler growth at all, which, as we all know, is indicating that this deer he's aging out. So.
Yeah, and I would estimate him to be 5.5 to 6.5 years old.
I would put him at 6, really. Yeah.
And I don't know, because like last year he had a couple of cool kickers. This year he looks a little bit more mainframe with less kickers. So I don't know if he's got the same mass or not, or if his body just looks bigger. But his body looks huge.
Yeah, he's a tank, and that's what you ended up naming him. So
that's his name.
Yeah.
So whenever I refer to tank, that's who I'm talking about, is that Collin County buck that I'm after. So
absolute massive deer.
So it could just be a little bit of both. Maybe he's trending down now because he is such an older. He's an older deer, but he's also, maybe his body has grown significantly as well.
Yeah. Making
his antlers look small. So who knows? The only way we'll find out is if I get him on the ground.
Well, I'm hoping that you do, because he's gonna be one heck of a deer to put down.
Absolutely,
especially with a bow. Well, we're getting close to the lease. This is going to be a shorter podcast. But one thing I did want to hit on before we wrap it up is another thing that we did leading into this season was we got you set up with some new arrows.
Heck yeah, and I needed it too.
Yes. So you're running Elite Ritual as your bow. You got that thing. You got, what's your draw? 29 or 29 and a half? 29 and a half.
Yep.
29 and a half inch draw. 73 pounds. So the arrows were running were not ideal for that bow.
No, they weren't.
So,
because they were a 340 spine or a 400 spine.
Yeah, they weren't the right spine. They were a lighter weight arrow. You weren't getting all the efficiency that you could have gotten out of an arrow.
You should explain spine for our listeners.
Yeah, so I'll go super basic with this, just in case, again. So we cover all our bases and make sure that the novice folks are taken care of in the archery world here. But so taking Nick and I into this building experience, when you're shopping for arrows, the first thing you're going to look at is the spine of an arrow. And what spine refers to is the stiffness of an arrow. Folks oftentimes think, if they're uneducated, they can assume that the number associated with the arrow, like what arrows did you end up going with?
300.
Well, the brand.
Oh, they're Black Eagle Deep Impact.
Black Eagle
arrows.
Deep Impact. So let's take those for example. So I want to buy some Black Eagle Deep Impact arrows. And there's a number that's associated with arrows. Oftentimes, the most common ones are 400, 340, or 300. Folks oftentimes think, well, that's how much the arrow weighs. That is incorrect. That number always refers to the spine or the stiffness of the arrow. The lower the number is, the stiffer the arrow is going to be. The greater poundage you shoot, the faster that your arrow is coming out of your bow, the stiffer you want it to be, so that it takes all the energy that you're sending that arrow, and no energy is being left in your bow, because at that point it can actually, if you shoot like a 73-pound bow and you shoot like a 500 spine out of it, you're honestly probably going to blow up your bow, because that arrow is not stiff enough to run out of that bow. If you guys are watching the podcast video, you might be able to see me do this. When an arrow is traveling and I don't have an arrow to hold conveniently, thought I might be able to reach it back there in the back seat, but no, I can't. And it's flexing, it's moving, and I'm over exaggerating here on the video, but it's flexing as it travels through the air. So the faster that arrow is going, the less you want it to flex, because at that point you are going to be hitting at the wrong angle. Kind of sidebar, but if you shoot at your target, for example, practicing, and you notice that your arrow is entering at a little bit of an angle, two things are either happening. One, your bow is out of tune, in which case you need to take it to a shop if you don't know how to do it yourself and get it back in tune, have it paper tuned. Or two, you're shooting a spine that's too low for your bow. That might be another reason that you see your arrow entering at an angle. So all it is to say, that's kind of the summary behind spine. Arrows do have weights, but the weights are specific to what your arrow is cut down to, what kind of insert you put in it. Do you put weighted inserts in it? And do you, what size field point do you run? You know, those are all the things that impact that in particular. So going back to yours, we wanted to put you with your draw length. Draw length plays a role in this as well. We wanted to put your draw length, and with you shooting 73 pounds out of this bow, we wanted it to be appropriate for what you're trying to do.
Yeah, for sure.
So we went with the 300 spine, and then you wanted an arrow that packed a little bit of a punch.
Yep.
And there's
a heavier arrow.
Yeah, and there's kind of a threshold that you have to be at with that as well, because, like, what did your arrow end up weighing when it was all said and done after you built it out?
With field points and the length of it and everything, it ended up being around 500 grains.
Around 500 grains. So out of a 73-pound bow, that is going to give you quite a bit of kinetic energy and pounds per square inch when you actually talk about the impact that you're having.
Yeah.
However, it would get to a point probably for that bow with you around the 650 to 700 grain mark is when you would start to actually lose some efficiency because the arrow is too heavy, if that makes sense. So when I talk about there being, and that's my own, I'm kind of spitballing that number, but when I talk about, you know, there being that threshold or you getting to that point where it's too much, that's kind of what I'm referring to right there. So something to keep in mind when you're building out an arrow. The other thing that is cool about, and that I like about these deep impact Black Eagle arrows, is it's a 4mm shaft.
Yeah.
So it's a very narrow diameter shaft. Still your standard thread size for the field point, so it's not a deep 6. You're not having to change all your broadheads and all your field points to a deep 6 thread, but you're getting the benefits of a smaller shaft with still the standardized thread size on field points and stuff, and that's because it runs an outsert, also contributing to a heavy FOC on your arrow and producing that greater weight and kinetic energy out of your bow.
And I think I should explain a little bit of why I wanted a heavier arrow.
Yeah.
Because so the arrows that I was shooting, I actually bought with the bow that I was shooting before the ritual, and so I haven't built arrows ever since I switched to the ritual. I haven't built arrows for that bow, which is really what you should do.
Right.
Because these bows were actually very different.
Yes.
So since these were basically just arrows that I bought, not arrows that I built for myself, I think they were a lighter arrow, probably, what would you say, high 300s, low 400s probably?
High 300s, yeah.
And so every time I would shoot something, and they were accurate, I was accurate with them, but every time I would hit something, I wouldn't have good penetration. I shot 3 different animals last season and didn't get good penetration on all 3 of them, and ended up eating tag soup last year.
Yeah.
So this year I wanted to change that, build some arrows, because really I had to, because I only had 1 arrow left when we built, and so I really had to, and I needed to anyways. So it was just the right time, but I wanted something that was going to actually get decent penetration and not just fly super fast, which these will fly fast anyways, fast enough at least.
Yeah. So well, it's cool to get to build those arrows out. Just wanted to kind of share that a little bit. Hopefully maybe at a future opportunity we can dive into some arrow build stuff a little bit more. Maybe while we're out here we can, with the arrows in hand, we can do a video and talk about it and stuff. That'd be cool. But
we can throw it in on the end of the podcast or something.
Yeah. But for now, I bring us to conclusion because we just turned off of the main road and onto the bumpy roads. So the audio is going to get worse here in a second. The video is going to get all jiggly. and we're about to have to settle into camp. So wanted to thank you guys for tuning in to another Fall Obsession podcast episode, whether you're listening on a streaming app or you're watching the podcast video on YouTube. Thank you. If you have not already, hit that follow and subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening or watching on. We are on all major podcast platforms. We're on Waypoint TV. We are on Carbon TV, and our podcast audio and videos are posted on our YouTube channel as well. All of that content you can also find on our website, fallobsession.com. That's the hub for everything. All of our video series, our educational videos and articles, our gear reviews, our podcasts, wild game recipes, you name it, it's on there. We cover hundreds of different topics in the hunting and outdoor worlds from across the country. So be sure that you guys go and explore around. At this point, our platform has expanded so much that we literally have something on there for almost everything at this point, I feel like.
Sure.
So
we're covering a lot of bases.
Yeah, whatever your interests are, you should be able to find it there. Social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, go wild. Head on over there and like, follow, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, turn your notifications on. And again, we are on Carbon TV with our podcast and our 2 video series, Couch Chats and Texas Dirt, which Texas Dirt is the whitetail management series that we're filming and producing out here on the property that Nick and I are about to pull up to right now. So be sure that you head on over there, and we'll be actually pretty much as soon as we finish recording this podcast, we'll be turning the camera around and starting to film an episode out here. So we're always doing something.
Constant work. It
never ends, man. Never ends. Ridge Rock Hunt Company, Derek and Lacey over there, they are our podcast partner. We love them. We appreciate all the representation we get over there at Ridge Rock. They book hunts with vetted outfitters across the country. So if you guys are looking to book your next hunting experience or that bucket list hunt that you've been saving up for, give Derek a call. He will work with you to find a vetted outfitter somewhere in a location that you like, and work with you as far as budget, timeline, all that kind of stuff. So Ridge Rock Hunt Company, go check them out. Thanks, Nick.
Yeah, fun. Man. It's always fun.
Just the beginning of another adventure. So we're about to, like I said, start filming a Texas Dirt episode. But thank you guys for listening, for watching. We're back again next Monday, as always, for another Fall Obsession podcast, and we'll catch you then.
Catch you later.